This is the Transforming Anxiety podcast with mindfulness teacher Kelly Hanlon McCormick. And today is episode number 274, Mental Load. My intention for this conversation is that we, yet again, gain some awareness, gain some perspective by seeing things differently. And in that perspective, that we find some breathing room, some space, and some resonance. Welcome in. It's the Transforming Anxiety podcast, episode number 274, Mental Load. I'm so glad you're here. Hey there. Welcome in today. All right, the great irony of this episode being a couple weeks later than I wanted to be is that it was basically the mental load of getting the last couple of weeks accomplished and this episode prepared that caused the delay. So, in case you are wondering how I'm doing with this stuff, I am just practicing and experiencing it all right alongside you. I promise. So, yeah, today we're talking about mental load. Have you heard this term? I hadn't until too recently, to be honest. Mental load is the behind-the-scenes cognitive and emotional load that goes into, basically, generally speaking, the business of running a household or anything. But this is often how it's most typically defined and talked about because this is how it's most often experienced. It's like the amount of thinking, figuring, sorting, decision-making, and emotional caretaking that's required to manage your life and often the lives of others, like children, partners, extended family members, and even, depending on the circumstances, friends, neighbors, and coworkers at times. Of course, this probably goes without saying, but we will say it, the bulk of this falls to women, and it's something more and more people are talking about. And I wanted to bring this topic to the podcast because I think it's vital. I think it's eye-opening. I think it's supremely relatable. And no matter who you are, no matter what your life circumstances, this is something that's happening in your life to some extent. And it's very important to be mindful of and aware of, both for yourself and for those who you either are caretaking for, or maybe, and we all are, sometimes, right? Maybe you're on the receiving end of some of that care because we're all the caregivers and the care receivers at times. Yeah. Now, I know, and I just want to caveat this at the beginning, I know this one is going to lean heavily towards my working moms, but I promise you there will be something for everyone in this discussion. This isn't just about being a working mom who is also married and also runs a household. It is largely about that because that is a very real existential threat to women living fulfilling and meaningful lives. But the concept of mental load is not at all exclusive to that circumstance, not even a little bit. So no matter who you are, no matter where you are in life, there's something in here for you, I promise. I also naturally want to touch on mental load and anxiety because I'm guessing this is something a lot of us are feeling, but maybe we don't have the language of mental load to even fully understand exactly what's going on. It's like just this inner conflict and ick that we are pretty sure means maybe I need to do more, or maybe if I can just figure this out, or maybe once we just get past golf season and cross-country season, then things will settle into a good rhythm. That's something I have said recently. Or, and this is what's coming up, once the holidays are over, it'll all settle down. I just need to get this work project out the door, and then things will be more steady. I know. I've been doing this dance too, like for, decades. And this concept, this whole idea has really, really resonated with me. And I haven't even scratched the surface on this one yet. There's books out there. There are TED Talks out there about this. So Google it, dig in with me. So so much more on this whole thing to come around here for sure. I'm positive. So I'm going to give you the lived experience of mental load, what this looks like on a daily basis, to give you a better idea of what we're talking about here today. So here are some examples. Like just the other night, my younger son had a cross country meet across town at 4:30. My older son had a school event at 6:30. Now, it is not hard. It is not even all that strenuous to get myself to the cross country meet, to watch him run, and then to take him home with me, drop him off, and pick up the other one and go to school. That can all happen. That's not a big deal, right? The timing lined up just fine. It could all flow pretty easily. And listen, I didn't have to run a cross country meet. I wasn't on the hook to do the school event. I was in pure spectator mode the whole evening, just watching my kids do things they loved. Cool. But here's the mental load part. You ready? So the day before, I had to be sure the cross-country uniform was washed and ready to be packed up first thing in the morning. And that afternoon, in order to get to the cross-country meet on time, I had to wrap up my work day and walk the dog and get out the door before 4 p.m., meaning I had like an hour or so less work time than usual, which is happening during a really busy season with my business. Then I had to be sure little brother had something for dinner and big brother was fed before we got home from the meet so that everybody was taken care of that way for the evening. I did a quick homework check in the car with one son. I had texted the other one while I was waiting for the meet to start. Any quizzes? Any tests this week? Does anybody need any help with anything? You want to practice or review anything? You want me to quiz you over anything? There's a debate speech and there's a math test and there's jazz band auditions. Okay, so check. We'll do some of all of that when we get home. Did I feed the dog? I think I fed the dog. So I grab beef jerky, I grab an apple, we're out the door for Big Brother's school event, and my phone is going this whole time, right? I get a few emails about work. There's a couple about a neighborhood event. Oh, and by the way, homecoming is this weekend. So we need to confirm the reservation for dinner. We need to be sure all the moms are on the text thread for photos and included in the invite for dinner as well so that everybody's in the know. I left a load of laundry in the wash this afternoon, so I need to switch that out when I get home. I need to return a text about meeting a friend to walk in the morning, and there appears to be something wrong with one of the software platforms that I use, so I need to take 10 minutes at some point and really look at it so I can see if I can figure it out. Is this a tech support thing? Okay, so you start to get the idea, right? This is mental load. It's not about getting from point A to point B to C to D. We can do that. It's not hard to drive the car around. It's not hard to pick kids up. It's not hard to make dinner. What is taxing is making a grocery list so that I know I have everything I need ready to go when it's time to make dinner, and being sure everything that has to happen for math tests and cross-country meets and running a business happens so that when it's time to do the thing, all the pieces are in place and we're all prepared. It's that so-called invisible work that happens behind the scenes day in and day out. That is mental load. And also, this assumes a somewhat robotic nature to life because this is mostly purely success-based planning. Because what happens when I have a bad day? What if one of my kids is struggling with a friend or is feeling nervous about trying something new? What if someone isn't feeling well? What if my parents are out of town and we need to run over to their house and water the plants and grab the mail because they're gone? Meaning, we haven't even considered all the one-off stuff that is always unfolding, which usually throws an inevitable wrench in the plans that we so carefully and thoughtfully laid out. Yeah? Yeah, mental load. So how about a quote? This is from Eve Rodsky. She wrote this in her book, which is called Fair Play, which I'm finding this is one of the go-to sources on this whole mental load thing. She wrote this: admit it, even though we're super tired and overextended, we still like to brag about all that we do and how much better women are at getting it done. But here's the thing. There is no consistent data proving that women are better at multitasking than men. It's just something we say to our girlfriends over coffee to feel better about all we've got piled on our own plates. All right, we're going to extrapolate this out a little bit, but let that one sink in for a minute. Our constant humble bragging about all we get done and achieve and can do and did do and will do. It's just wild what we think life is about. All of us running around like crazy instead of showing up in our lives, present and embodied and somewhat self-aware, maybe even kind and energized. No one can multitask. Sidebar, but this is a really important note. That's not a thing, multitasking. My older son he's 15 and he has his driver's permit. He's a sophomore. There's just all kinds of things that feel like this question of like he's getting older and starting to get more independence and freedom, right? So this question of how old do you have to be to do X or Y? I just feel like it keeps coming up in conversation with him. And there are some things we are just never old enough to do. Like you're never old enough to text and drive, right? That's not a thing. It's not a level you ever unlock. You're never old enough to oppress other people. You aren't ever old enough to be a misogynist or a racist or ageist or homophobic or any of those things. Not ever. We are also never old enough to multitask. Just can't do it. Like, let that one go. My point being, of course, that these are things we either cannot do or absolutely should never do, right? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay. Also this from Eve Rodsky. This is a woman that she was speaking with who confessed, honestly, I believe I lost my permission to be interesting. She explained that at first, the role of wife and mother fulfilled her, and she lived vicariously through her husband's professional success. But then, more than a decade and a half later, she recognized that she'd lost her earlier identity, the vibrant and passionate woman who she'd worked so hard to become, and who her husband had originally fallen in love with. So again, I know this skews towards working moms who are married and even assumes heterosexual relationships to some extent. But really think about all of this. This is for all of us. We just trudge along. We just keep moving forward. And at some point, we give up or lose or have the permission to be ourselves. That permission to want what we want, the permission to be interesting, it's like we have that taken from us. It's gone. And that sense, that is the moment or the season in our lives when we start to look around and go, is this all there is? Like, is this what I've been working towards and pushing for and striving to get to? This is one of the swiftest, most intense, and wide-ranging casualties of mental load. That we become more task than person. We let go of our essence and our me-ness, like those things that make you you, in the interest of plowing forward with work, the house, the people, the lists, the errands, all of it. All right, tangentially, Brianna Wiest, I don't know how to say her last name, forgive me. She wrote this: true self-care is not salt baths and chocolate cake. It is making the choice to build a life you don't need to regularly escape from. So this is a philosophy that I subscribe to wholeheartedly. This is also something my friend Holly Whitaker talks about a lot in the world of recovery and sobriety, which is stop trying to quit something and instead build a life that you love so much that you don't want to leave it, particularly by getting obliterated with alcohol, right? The energy of this is helpful. Move towards something you want instead of away from something you don't want. Yes. I just find it's far more powerful to be for something than against something. Plus, it just feels better. Okay, to bring this back to mental load, I want to suggest, although it's probably evident by now, that mental load and anxiety go hand in hand, or at least can go hand in hand, right? Again, it's not a matter of executing what we need to do in a day. That's typically not a problem. We can work, we can run errands, we can fix dinner, we can get kids where they need to go, walk the dog, we can do chores. Sure, not a big deal. The bigger deal, I have found, is what goes into that. The mental load that's required to get all that stuff off the ground. The thinking and the planning and the Tetris block moving of things in Google calendars so that things align. That is what takes a toll. By the time we're executing, things feel either like a relief or completely beside the point, right? We're exhausted, we're wrung out, we're tired but wired, and our nervous systems are on the fritz. This is the anxiety that comes along with all of the to-do lists and going and doing. The tasks themselves are usually not that hard, not that taxing. It's the prep work involved, the mental load those things require that is so wearing. So I bring this one up today here with you because for me, hearing about this concept, like simply knowing that there wasn't something wrong with me and it wasn't that I was falling short or particularly unattuned to the going and doing that needed to be gone and done. It was that I spent a lot of energy coming up with the plans and being sure things were in place and contacting the other people involved and buying the supplies and getting things ready and organized before we could even get to the going and doing. And that was the heavy part. That was where I spent time and energy and effort and emotion and money and attention and focus. And that was often what wore me out. Like, honestly, just knowing this was a thing was so helpful. It remains so helpful. When I'm flailing at the end of a day where I had to make a lot of decisions and use a lot of brain power and did a lot of planning and figuring and scheduling and sorting, plus a grocery store run and a load of laundry so that all the uniforms are clean and a quick check of the fridge to be sure, hey, do we have enough milk? Right? All the things. My days, I have to be honest, they aren't particularly hard or taxing. I don't work in a school or a hospital. I don't solve crimes or cure diseases. I don't come up with answers for foreign policy dilemmas or bring high conflict problems to resolution through intense negotiations. I work hard, sure, and I do my best for myself and my family and my business. And I recognize that what I do is pretty ordinary. Like, I suppose it's important and helpful, and sometimes it's really good fun, and it matters. And it's just something that's relatively low stakes. I get that. And yet, man, can I feel just completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume and flood of things, decisions, tasks, planning, and organization it requires. Yes, I can. Mental load. So try this one on. See how the mental load of your life piles up, how it feels, just how much that part weighs. It's not nothing. I think we sometimes have our focus on the wrong place, right? We get wrapped up in the doing and the going and the execution of things, when the real work, the heavy work, is behind the scenes and before all of that doing and going. The real work is largely invisible to the external world. The real work is often what you feel the weight of. And that's the thing that we struggle to see and recognize and appreciate for what it is. And then we kind of low-level beat ourselves up for not getting our act together or feeling better or just generally getting things done a little more smoothly and with a little more ease. And it's not that. It's not that. So this is one of those things that I hope the simple awareness of makes you see things differently, helps you to appreciate a different perspective that shifts things so that you can breathe a little bit, so that you can remind yourself that you aren't going about it all wrong, that there's nothing wrong with you, that nothing at all has gone wrong here. Mental load is a very real thing. It's the undercurrent. It's the background noise, that invisible yet gargantuan amount of effort that's required to get things off the ground and keep them humming along. And it falls to someone, right? Is it you? Are you carrying a huge amount of mental load in your life, at your workplace, in your home? Can you appreciate someone who's carrying some mental load on your behalf? And can you give yourself a break when you feel the weight and you stumble a little under the sheer massive force of the mental load that you've got on your shoulders? Yeah. All right. That is it for today. I will see you again next week, same place, same time, for more transforming anxiety. And until then, please take care. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, for doing this work alongside me. Thank you for sharing this with your friends and your family, anyone who, could use the support and the guidance, who could use these teachings and practices. Thank you for sharing your stories with me, telling me about your experiences and asking your questions. I'm here with you. Let's do this together. Transforming anxiety.